This episode of the Old Dogs REI Network is brought to you by Mino Studio.
In a world where jobs are how most people make money, one man, one desire, one challenge dares to break the mold. Welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network, where we don't work for money. Money works for us. Coming soon. Viewer discretion advised.
Welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network, where cash flow is king. Real estate investing, the means, so you can enjoy your retirement dreams. This is the show where we cut right to the chase. No sales pitch, no long monologues, just simple how-to real estate investing advice, so you can earn the passive income you need to enjoy your retirement today. And now, your host and chief old dog, Bill Manassero.
Welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network. I'm your host, Bill Manassero, and this is the show where 50-plussers and anyone else who wants to join us get solid, no sales pitch real estate investing advice to help generate real cash flow. This podcast airs twice weekly on Mondays and Fridays, and if you aren't already a subscriber, go to iTunes, type in Old Dog, spelled D-A-W-G, find our podcast, and subscribe. Well, we have a great show for you today. This is going to be a kick. It's another fellow Californian, actually a fellow Southern Californian here. Today's guest is Monick Halm, and she's a real estate investor, syndicator, and developer with over 14 years of real estate investing experience. Together with her husband and her investors, she has over 1,000 rental doors across 5 states. She's an educator and advocate for women interested in real estate investing and has made it her mission to help 1 million women create financial freedom through real estate. Wow, that's a great goal. She's the founder of Real Estate Investor Goddesses, an online education, mentoring, and community platform for female real estate investors. The #1 best-selling author of the Real Estate Investor Goddess Handbook and Wealth for Women, Conversations with the Team That Creates the Dream, and the host of the Real Estate Investor Goddesses podcast. She is also a real estate strategy mentor, a Huffington Post contributor, author, keynote speaker, recovered attorney, I love that, certified interior designer, feng shui expert, avid world traveler, wife, and mother of 3 amazing kids. Wow, you have it all right there, woman. Welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network.
Thank you, Bill. Thanks for having me.
Wow, man. Gosh, I just kind of, there's a lot of stuff going on there. Before we get started, just, kind of give us your story about, how you got involved in real estate. I mean, it sounds like you were an attorney, you did all these different things. Where'd you come from?
Sure. Well, I started my career as an attorney, and real estate investing was never anything I thought about or knew anything about. I have great parents, very loving. I'm a first-generation American. My parents are from Haiti, and growing up, all they told me about success, and my parents are very supportive. They always said, you can do anything you want, but in parentheses was, as long as you're a doctor, lawyer, professor, engineer. Right? and all I learned was, you get the best job you can. And with real estate, the only thing I was taught was to buy your own house. I was a dutiful daughter. I went the law school route. I became a lawyer. I was miserable as a lawyer, but that's a whole other story. But when I was practicing law, and I'd been in it for a couple of years, and I thought, okay, well, now I guess it's time to buy a house. And so this was LA in 2005, and it was towards the top of the last bubble. and I couldn't find anything that I could afford in a semi-decent neighborhood. Everything was, you're in Southern California, you know how it is. So upwards of $500, $600, $700,000. And even on a six-figure salary, that was tough for me. And a friend of mine who was in a similar position, he was a consultant, he suggested that we buy a duplex together. And he'd live on one side and I'd live on the other. And I thought, okay, well, I can afford half a house, I think. So let's do that. So we ended up finding this property, but instead of having two equal sides, it ended up having, there was one, it's like a old craftsman with the downstairs was one unit, much bigger unit. Upstairs was another 2-bedroom unit. And then there was a converted garage in the back. We both fell in love with the downstairs and we decided we'd each take a bedroom there. And then we ended up renting the upstairs. We rented the garage, the converted garage. And then we also rented our basement out to a friend. And not knowing this was a thing, we house hacked. We were house hacking and all of
I love it.
I didn't know I didn't know that was a thing, but I went, oh my gosh, these people are paying like my mortgage, right? This is awesome. And then when I met my husband, he had a duplex, and then we got a single family house, and we ended up, after the downturn, we sold a duplex and we started flipping when houses were on sale. And and then 2015 we learned about syndication, and then we really started getting going. That's how I got into real estate investing.
Wow, that's what a kick! And do you still have that house hacked house, or did you sell that?
I still have it.
Oh, you do, really?
Yeah.
And is that in LA?
In LA, yeah.
Oh man, so
It's my only LA property.
wow. Is it your only California property?
Yep, only California property.
Wow.
Everything else out of state.
I can relate to that. I didn't know you were Haitian. I lived in Haiti for 12 years.
You did?
Yeah, comment y
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I had no idea. I had no idea you're Haitian. Wow, that is very cool. That is very cool. Well, yeah, we lived Damas 75. Wow. Okay, that's sorry, getting off track here, but
Yeah, well, after this we'll talk about it.
Oh, that's great. You started as a house hacker, and then why did you decide to go flipping? And did you flip out of state?
We flipped in LA
Oh, you did flip in it.
at the time. So it wasn't until it was October 2015, and I met through a mutual friend. I met Robert Helms.
Oh yeah, the real estate guys. Yeah.
Yeah, so we have a very good friend in common, and happy to say now Robert and I have since become friends. But he, talking to him, he was the first person that told me, because I don't know why, I just assumed that you had to invest where you lived. You have to invest where you could go and drive to your property and touch it. And he said, I always say, he said, LA's a tough market. I always say, live where you want to live, invest where the numbers make sense. And I went, oh, like you can do that, right? I just hadn't thought of it before. So he literally opened up the world. But until then, I would never have thought to invest outside of where I lived. So we invested in LA because that's where we were. And it was 2010, I think, when we began flipping. And it was just, I was watching all those HGTV shows and they looked fun. And I was like, that looks fun. I think I could do that. Because we'd done some renovating of our own properties, but we hadn't, we were watching all these flipping shows, and we ended up selling one of the duplexes, and we had some cash to invest, and houses were on sale. So
that was a good time to do flipping here, actually. Yeah.
And so we just got into it, and it was the right time. So it was quite lucrative. And beginning at that point, we could, it was a lot easier on our mistakes to be forgiving, right? It was hard to lose money. And then we went through, and then 2015 happened, and it was just getting more and more, the margins were getting slimmer and slimmer, it was more and more competitive. It was harder to find properties that would make sense. And that's when I met Robert Helm. So, in that first 10-minute conversation I had with him, he was asking what we'd been up to. And, we had decided after the flipping was getting harder and harder, we thought, well, why don't we do buy and hold? And we were thinking about getting a fourplex, because that was as big as we could imagine going at that point. And also because we were in LA where it was a fortune to get anything. And that was all we could afford, but we couldn't find anything that we could afford that made any financial sense. Nothing was cash flowing. Nothing would give us money back. And so I was really frustrated. That's when our mutual friend Kyle said, you should meet Robert and talk to this guy. So, because Robert had come to LA, and so I was chatting with him, and he was asking what we'd been up to, and I was telling him about the flipping and looking for that fourplex and how frustrating it was. And that's when he said the thing about, live where you want to live, invest where the numbers make sense. And then the other thing he said was, and you could get that fourplex by yourself, but you're limited to your own capital and credit. He said, alternatively, you could get a 100 or 200 unit apartment building by bringing groups of investors together. And I went, huh? That's a thing? You can do that? I thought you need a Donald Trump's bank account to get a 100, 200 unit building. It's like, real people do this thing? And I went, that's what I want to do. I want to do that, what he's talking about. And I told him at the time, it's like, I'm going to be your groupie. I want to learn to think like you. And he laughed. He thought I was kidding. And no.
You were kidding.
Totally followed the man around the world, literally learning from him. But
did you go to their syndication workshops?
I did. I went home that night and I told my husband, I said, there's a thing called syndication, and you can bring groups of investors together and get bigger properties, and you can leverage and spread the risk and more reward and go much further faster and bring people along with us. And so that night we signed up for our first syndication seminar, which was happening in January of 2016 in Phoenix. So we signed up. We went in January and we signed up to mentor with the real estate guys, and then we did another mentorship for a lot of training, a lot of mentorship. But in that year, we got over 1,000 units.
Wait a minute. Okay. Now, what 1,000 units in 1 year?
Not all by ourselves, but bringing groups of investors together. And that's huge. On that complex in LA. Yes, it's huge.
Oh my gosh! Now, were you still practicing law at this time, or?
So, thankfully, I left law in 2008, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I was. I was miserable as a lawyer, so this was kind of a blessing in disguise. But I got fired when I was 5 months pregnant, which was not ideal. And then you might have remembered what happened in 2008. So my daughter was born. So I was 5 months pregnant. I thought, okay, well, you know what? I'm not going to look for a job now. I'll wait until after I give birth and I have, maybe a few months of a couple months of maternity leave, then I'll look. My daughter was born in August, late August of 2008. And you may remember what was happening in the fall of 2008. It was not a great time to be looking for work and getting into new things. So it was a blessing in disguise because I couldn't find another job at that point. And I was miserable. So it was an opportunity to do something else, but I had to. So I did become, I became a coach, and I did I did other things, and but the real estate was there on the side, luckily. And then after, when we started flipping, it became more and more full time. And then when we went into the syndication, then that became the main gig.
And from that first syndication seminar to, sort of through your mentoring,
Mhm.
How long a period was that until you actually bought your first, apartment building?
So our first syndication was actually a mobile home park that
Oh, okay.
we actually did a sub syndication. That was our first thing. One of the guys in our mastermind who was doing mobile homes and mobile home parks, and I thought that was a super fascinating asset class, and was very excited about it. So we ended up, and he had a big investor that was going to bring in money from Korea, and the last minute couldn't bring in the money. So he said, "Hey, do you guys want to syndicate this?" We went, "Yeah, be awesome." So that was our first syndication, and then we got so that was in June, I believe, and then in
Of what year?
of 2016.
2016. Okay.
Yeah, and then we passively invested in a couple of things as well. And then we ended up getting two apartment buildings at the same time in Albuquerque, New Mexico, a 51 unit and a 77 unit, two separate owners, but we put in offers at the same time. They were both accepted, and we thought, okay, well, 128, they were about a mile apart, and we thought we could get more economies of scale if we would get the property manager to manage them together.
Right. Good idea.
So we ended up taking those two buildings down at the same time in the fall. And then what else did we do? I feel like there was one other syndication we did that year. And we did a development syndication.
Oh, wow.
It might have started in the fall in that next year. But between those and our and the passive opportunities, we got over 1,000 units.
Wow. And now, were your apartment purchases, were they value add plays?
Yes, yeah, they were both C-class value add.
Mm-hmm. And did you get a good price on the properties when you purchased them?
We did. We got a really good price on them.
Were they on market or
They
off
were
market?
they were on market, and what I think there were a couple of things that we did that helped us get into the game. So our next door neighbor at the time, or well, she's still not our next door neighbor, but at the time she worked for this large real estate investment fund. She had done at that point almost $1 billion worth of real estate transactions.
Wow.
And had amazing experience in apartment syndications. But she wanted to get into doing some smaller things in her own account. Was really too busy to find things and do the work by herself. But when we said we're getting into syndication, we decided to partner together. And so she was going to help do the due diligence, and she obviously had incredible resume and experience, and we were going to be like, we were the ones that went to the market. We're pounding the pavement, finding the deals, and we're going to do the work together. We're going to put in more of the time because she didn't have as much time. Turned out she didn't have any time, so we didn't actually partner with her. But for a long time, for quite a while, she was on our group. So
Your mastermind?
she was part of the team, right?
Oh, yeah, okay.
Our team had $1 billion of real estate investing experience, even though most of it was her, but still, like, we were taken seriously because
She was on your team. I got it. She was like part of your management, or was she a GP? Like,
we were partners.
Gotcha.
So having her on there, it was a lot of what we were able to accomplish. Because my point was through teamwork, and having other people that we could, that where we were lacking, we were able to team up with people who were able to complement what we were lacking. And so what we were lacking in terms of experience, by having her on the team, and eventually she didn't get the buildings with us, we ended up getting another person on our team who had more experience. Not quite as much as her. She was quite experienced, but we still got another experienced partner. But we were able to get in the door and get taken seriously because we had because as a team we had all of this working for us and going for us.
Did she also act as a sponsor on the deals?
We didn't end up ever doing any deals with her.
Okay. She was on. Okay, but I got it.
For a while, she was going to be part of the sponsorship team, and then she just did not have any bandwidth.
Gotcha.
To work. So we didn't end up doing anything with her, but we were able to get under contract before, and then we made it happen. But we definitely got taken a lot more seriously having her on our, having her on as part of the team.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And with the passive deals that you did, did that the lenders or the sellers take that into account in terms of your experience or your background?
The passive deals?
Yeah. Did they evaluate? Was that listed as one of the things that you've been involved with?
It was part of our story, right? That in terms of our ownership and our experience. I think if that had just been it probably wouldn't have been particularly compelling. But we had syndicated something before. We had other experienced syndicators. So we got another experienced syndicator, on our team. But then, our neighbor had incredible experience, right? So as a team, we were able to make a very good case.
Gotcha. Now, were you making contacts through, the syndication workshops and so forth, to add people to your team? Is that where you primarily were making your contacts?
Yeah, we were part of Real Estate Guys network and their inner circle, and then we were part of Brad Sumrock, who's an apartment. He teaches apartment investing. We're part of his syndication network. So a lot of our, our partner on the Albuquerque deals was from Brad Sumrock's group. We also got, we had a GP from that group as well. And a lot of our investors came from there too.
Wow. You sort of utilized both ends, the Real Estate Guys and Brad Sumrock did you get most of your sort of training and mentoring through Brad or through the Real Estate Guys?
It was a combination.
Yeah, sounds like, you're in two excellent hands there. I imagine you picked up a lot in both of those.
Yeah, I did. So that was when we were going to be taking other people's money. We were going to be a steward of other people's money. It was really, really, really important for me to know that we knew what we were doing and we had a good support behind us. Anything came up that we, people that we could call and talk to and learn from and pick their brains, because stuff always happens, right? There's always challenges. And it was really important that we be able to do the best possible by our investors. So it was important for us to invest in that, and it was completely worth it. So I'm a big, big believer in mentorship and education.
That's great. And so today, what's your portfolio consist of?
So we have apartments. We still have the mobile home park. We actually ended up selling. Well, one of our Albuquerque properties we sold at the end of last year. The other one will be selling, and it should be closing this in the next week.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it was partly. We got an offer we couldn't refuse from a 1031 exchange seller or buyer, and he is just the cap rates have really. It's great to be a seller. Let me just say that of multifamily. Not as great to be a buyer in multifamily, but for selling, it made sense for us and for our investors. And then we just did an industrial project in Houston, and we have a couple developments in Lake Charles, Louisiana. So one is an RV park development, another one is a multifamily development, and and then we're about to do a single family portfolio in Jackson. So we have quite a variety of asset classes that we are invested in right now.
Interesting. Yeah, usually, you don't see that often where folks are really that diversified in terms of their asset classes. How did you? I mean, do you feel comfortable moving into those different areas, like especially development? That's a whole different ballpark.
Oh yeah. So for us, we're definitely people first in terms of investing, and our focus now is more on the fundraising side and the investor relations. So what we're doing more now, I mean, we have the apartment buildings in Albuquerque, we manage those assets, but what we've figured out is our forte and strength in our preference is having relationships with investors and partnering with amazing operators who are bringing us deals, who we feel really good about them as people, their track record, their experience with that asset class, like partnering with amazing people, and then being able to bring those opportunities to our investors. So that's why it's it's varied, because we're gonna go with what these amazing partners are that we have vetted and trust and develop relationships with and friendships with, and going and doing deals with them.
Gotcha. And now, do you have a fund, or do people come to you that want to do a raise, for example? I mean, how do you partner with people?
So we have, we've been going deal by deal. So right now, we have an investor list, and we have a list of our investors who have told us, what they're interested in. And so we seek out opportunities that are a match for investors. And so that's partly having the right partners, and then having opportunities that match, what our investors are seeking. And if we think that it goes together, then we'll move forward.
You have investors that are kind of driving what kinds of deals you pursue, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so if somebody says, "Hey, I'm really into office buildings, and can you let me know?" And then maybe give you your criteria, their criteria, and then you try to track down folks that have those kinds of projects. Is that right?
Yeah. So it's less asset class focused, more helping them reach their investing goals.
Okay.
But that's, in terms of, it would be in terms of returns, in terms of risk, in terms of, just, what are they looking for more generally? And then, because people aren't necessarily that focused, like I need to have a mobile home park, or I need to have an office building. Really, what they might say that because they want, I want a mobile home park because it's a high cash flowing, or they're interested in what their money will do for them, more so than I need to have a mobile home park, or I need to have an office building. So then we focus on, what are their outcomes, their desired outcomes, and the risk tolerance, and then find things that are a match for that.
Interesting. That's a very different approach than used to hearing. That's kind of cool. People come to you and say, "Yeah, this is what I'm looking," more in the way of returns, right, for the most part, or they also, whether it's a short term or a long term hold, or do they usually say, "Hey, I'm looking for something that's got a good equity play at the end," or 3 to 5 year hold?
Yeah, so I spent a lot of time talking to all of my investors, asking them, it's like, what are their goals, long term, short term, What do they want their money to do for them? Why are they interested in investing? Really getting a sense of what their values are, what their vision is, what their desires are. Really, I try to go pretty deep into who they are and what they're looking for, and so I can find things that are matched, and then I will do hypotheticals. So, okay, you said you're really interested in this, or you're not interested in that. Is that because you just don't understand that asset class, and or is it because So I try to get really specific, and sometimes I have had investors. Well, I'm really interested in investing, socially investing. So I want to invest in communities that are underprivileged and where we can do good while making money. Got it. So there, I've had a couple, but mostly it's just, that's either I want to invest so that I have a nest egg when I retire, or I want to be able to have cash flow so that I can retire early and replace my income, or so I try to get as much clarity as I can in terms of what they're looking for and why. Is it the tax benefits that you're interested in? So then we wouldn't give you a debt play that's high cash flow, but wouldn't give you a tax benefit. So we get as much clarity as we can into their why behind why they're investing, so that we can find things that are matched that might not be in the box, right? Because most people they understand single family rentals, they understand multifamily, but a lot of the asset classes they may not get yet, may have not had that exposure to, but they would still meet their investing needs. So that's why we go pretty deep to find out how to meet their needs is in the most effective way possible.
Interesting. So you have people coming to you that are investors that have particular investing goals, and then you probably have people coming to you that have projects that they need funding for too, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, so you've got okay. So where do you make your money? Being real blunt here,
Sure.
In this kind of a deal, because you're not managing the assets, you're not necessarily. Are you
So
a GP
we
on
are
these
on
deals,
the we do get on the sponsorship team,
Okay.
and so we share that way, even though we're not we're not so much working on the day to day, but we are involved in the larger strategic decisions about the property, and when it's a good time to sell or refinance, or how we want to move forward in that way. We are on the sponsorship team, and we, in terms of like pay, so we get a share of equity and cash flow that way. Usually there's the acquisition fee as well, sponsorship fee. So that's the main thing. And then we stay involved as part of investor relations and keeping our investors apprised of what's going on. And so we're involved, but not in the day-to-day handling of the assets.
Gotcha. So you may be representing a group of investors then, right? But
Yes.
you're listed as a single sponsor, or is it like your LLC is listed as a sponsor and these people are part of your LLC? I'm just trying to get the structure of it.
So we have done it mostly. We're part of the sponsorship LLC, though we have done it once where we had our own LLC that was, so we'd sub-syndicated. So we had our own LLC that became a major investor in the project, but it was our LLC was separate. Our LLC was an investor, as opposed to we're part of our the sponsorship team, and our individual investors just become part of our, like any other investor. One thing, a project that I am launching this year that I'm super excited about is a fund called the Goddess Fund. Like, so you mentioned before that my big mission is helping women create financial freedom, and and supporting women in real estate. So our fund is a fund geared towards women. It's not men can invest in it too, but it's geared towards women. But the projects will be majority women-run real estate projects, so that we will be funding. And so it's investing in these women-run projects. So that will be a fund that people can buy into, and the fund will be investing in a variety of different projects, as opposed to our project by project way that we've been investing so far.
So you're this is the first fund you've actually started, or?
Yes.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, this is really interesting. Yeah, I had no idea. I kind of knew your background, but I thought you were more involved with sort of the asset management part of it. But it sounds like no, you're really more from the funding side, which is interesting. So when you sponsor a deal, for example, sort of a typical apartment deal where you have a sponsor. Sponsor is going to be one that's going to probably sign on your loan. They've got to have liquidity and so forth for a project. Mm-hmm. I mean, is that also the case with your sponsorship?
Yeah. So as a team, right? You need to have. There's going to be somebody that's going to be the guarantee. Like we'll have
there's the net worth.
We're gonna show, there'll be a certain amount of net worth and liquidity, and so it doesn't all have to come from us, but it's as the team will show that. So and we're not usually as involved in getting the financing and doing all of that. We're more involved in bringing investor dollars to the table for the for the down payment and any CapEx, funds needed from investors.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. So that it's kind of become your niche then,
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of looking, you've got this great spans from house hacking to flipping to, apartment owners to passive investors to now, I'm trying to think of how to classify you now. Yeah, as professional sponsors for deals. What would you say, sort of, just in your learning process here? Would you say was sort of maybe the biggest mistake, the thing that happened that, oh man, really that just hit us, but man, I learned from this, and that's something that you could share with our audience that might be valuable for them.
Sure, biggest mistake. There's so many.
Pick your favorite.
I think there's a category of mistakes that I think it's been. So like I said, I'm definitely really people first. And one of the things that I've realized is that when getting teams together, and especially, when we're running or managing our teams and getting sort of contractors and thinking that we would go with the cheapest, right? Because you're on a budget and you're trying to get as much out of it as possible. And one thing I learned the hard way, because I had a mentor tell me, work with the best. They won't cost you money; they'll make you money. And I've found, my biggest mistakes have been trying to be penny wise and ending up pound foolish. So, trying to get, I'll go with this contractor. He's cheaper, but then he doesn't really know what he's doing. And ending up having to eventually hire the more expensive guy to fix all the stuff that the cheap guy did. So that's been, like making sure I work with the best, whether they're the operators or, whatever I'm working on, but working with the best possible people has definitely helped us a lot. And whenever we've tried to cut corners on that, it's it just for budget sake, that's when it's come to bite us in the butt. I think that's been my biggest mistake. Those have been like my category of big mistakes.
That's good. That's
yeah.
good. Good. What would you say has been the most successful thing that you've done?
So, is it okay if I say so? I have a training program for women, and like when my real estate investor goddesses, and what has given me the most joy has actually been when my goddesses have gotten properties and they've been successful, and so that I think even more than any of my particular deals and beating projections or whatever, but that's really what has I think have been my biggest successes.
Now, are you teaching them ground up how to become a real estate investor, and is it in the area of apartments, or is it other avenues?
It's foundational principles, really. So that can so I have an is it an anagram? It's not the word. Wealthy is it's the it's a 7-part thing. Each
Sure, okay.
letter stands for a part of this formula that I teach, right? So to women, and the W has to do with womanly, because as women we are different in how we tend to treat money and investing, and how we are more successful. So and it's partly to do with our and being able to tap into our intuition. It's partly to do with having sisterhood, because we work really well together as women. There's like biologically we're wired for that. We release oxytocin in groups of women, and it's partly it's mindset. So there's definitely that. E is education. So you need to be educated to be a successful investor. And then A has to do with assets, and that's different types of assets and also asset protection. L is location, talking about what do you need in a market, and finding the right market. T is team. Who do you need on your team to be successful? H, that's the one that's a bit of a stretch, but it's how do you pay for it? So, the H is how do you pay, and because there's conventional loans is what most people are familiar with, but as we know that there's hard money, private money, seller financing, all cash. There are different ways. So syndication. There are a lot of different ways that you can get creative with how you pay. And then the Y is you, because your real estate is not one size fits all. So how do you create a plan that works for you, your resources, how you want to play in this game, and and how do you best meet your goals? So that's what we go through in the training. We go through each of those parts of that formula. Yeah.
I see. So you could have somebody who maybe wants to build a portfolio of single family homes. You could have another person that wants to do self storage. Another one that does. I mean, it doesn't really matter. It's just really helping them to build the sort of the foundational principles.
Yes. Yeah. It's very, very principle based, so that it might be that you're in single family homes, and then you want to get bigger, or the market's changed and now you need a new you're going to go on a different direction. But what are the principles that will steer you in the right path, regardless of what the particular asset class is, or what the market's doing.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, our audience is primarily folks that are 50 years of age and older, although we actually have a lot of people younger, but that's our target audience anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And is that we're really focused on the needs that pertain to that group that is approaching retirement, or they're already in retirement. And they're looking at real estate investing as really a means to be able to help them to, have the retirement that they really dreamed of. And that's a big focus of what we're looking at. For that audience, what kind of advice could you give them from your experience? And maybe you could even talk specifically to the women in this audience. But what would you advise what they should do to get started?
So it's very similar to what I would advise anybody, but it's about really figuring out what are your goals. And I like to start with the end in mind. So where do you want to be and and somebody who's 25, right, it's gonna be the longer time horizon, right? But I would still tell them to start with the end in mind. And so you're 50 and you're thinking, okay, I have 20 years, or you're 60 and you're thinking I have 5 or 10 years. So what's the end, and what do you want? Where do you want to be at the, with the end in mind? So I actually ask, where do you want to be in 20 years, 10 years, 5 years, 1 year? But you move backwards. But if you start with the beginning, that will help you figure out what your best steps are. So it's kind of like somebody who asks, well, I want to go on vacation. What's my next step? It's like, well, where are you going? Are you going to Hawaii? Are you going to, are you staycating? Are you going to the town next door? Are you like their neighboring town? Are you going to Europe? Like, where are you, Japan? Where are you going? Are you going by ship? Or you want to fly? Are you like cruising?
Right.
Are you driving? So all of those things are going to require different steps. So I always say you start with the end in mind, and then we can, if you have the principles, then you can figure out, okay, this is, you figure out where you want to end up, and then you figure out what kind of journey do you want? What do you love about real estate investing? What don't you want to be doing? Because there are ways to do it with no time, right? You can be passive investor, get your money working for you and not take any time. Or some people really want to get into it, and, they love redecorating and redesigning and renovating. And so how do you want to play in this game? You figure that out. And then from there, where you want to end up and how you want to journey, then you can make the right plan to get you there.
For your own business, what are your sort of short and long-term goals?
For my own business?
Yes.
Well, I have the goal, my mission, which is about the 1 million women, helping them create financial freedom. So that's my big goal. Personally, it's like getting to, like, we're at this point where we don't have to work anymore, luckily, but I love it. So it's not, I guess it's more about how can I have an impact, the biggest possible impact is really, that's my goal. So figuring out, my short-term goals are to get the Goddess Fund going, because I think that will allow me to have a much bigger impact much faster, and figuring out ways in which I can create more of a mass impact. I think that's really where my goals are.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
We're kind of moving to the end of our time together. Actually, it's gone really fast because there's just a lot of good information in there. But I want to respect your time and be able to also sort of just tap into some information here regarding your own experiences and resources that would be of value to our listeners. So this is what we call our Wrap It Up session. So if you are ready, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. What is your favorite real estate book?
I think my favorite real estate book is, I won't say mine, though I do love my book, Real Estate Investor Guide Handbook. But it is I think it's probably the ABCs of Real Estate Investing by Kenny McElroy.
Yeah, that's a great one. Great.
Mm-hmm.
How about favorite business book?
So my favorite business book, I think, would have to be The Go-Giver.
Oh, that's a great book. I love that book. Very good choice.
So good. Yeah.
Cool. How about most valuable website for success, of course, other than your own?
Facebook, which is also the answer to your next question too.
Okay.
There's so much of my my business that comes through Facebook, and the connections that I create there.
That's great. And it sounds like that's also your favorite app, huh? How about favorite quote?
So my favorite quote is, "Begin doing what you want to do now. We are not living in eternity. We have only this moment, sparkling like a star in our hand and melting like a snowflake." And that's by M.B. Ray.
Oh, cool. Okay. And our final question here, if something terrible happened and you lost everything, and all you had left was $1,000 in cash, what would you do with that $1,000 to help rebuild your real estate investing business?
So with $1,000, I mean, if I lost everything, including my relationships, because if I lost my relationship,
no, you didn't.
If I had my relationships, I wouldn't need any money. I'd still be in the game. But if I knew nobody and I only had $1,000, I would, I would start rebuilding relationships. I would invest in going to real estate RIAs and real estate conferences, and just rebuilding relationships and finding out how I could serve people and create win-wins, and I'd get in the game that way.
That's great. Great answer. Wow. Well, we probably have a lot of folks listening that would love to, connect with you, find out more about what you do and your groups, your books. We're going to list your book, by the way, on here so that people can get access to that. But I understand you even do some seminars and different things. So, what's the best way people can find out what you're doing and how to get a hold of you?
Yeah. So for the ladies, I go to reigoddesses.com, and there you can join our sisterhood and find out about all of our events and trainings. They're mostly geared towards women, though we do have one in July that's happening that's called Real Estate Soulmates, which is for couples that are working together, that want to work together. But for everyone else, the men, you can go to vip-assets.com, and that's if you can connect with me there, and that's more our syndication business.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Or on Facebook.
Oh, yeah.
I love Facebook. Find me on Facebook, or go to Real Estate Investor Goddesses on Facebook, or Monick Halm on Facebook.
Gotcha. Wow. Yeah. Okay, you kind of do a lot of stuff. This is great. Well, we have a tradition here, and we know you're not an old dog, but you've been grandfathered in, okay, just for this for this interview here. So we would love you to close us out with your best. You've got that Haitian background. Now there are a lot of dogs in Haiti. I know this firsthand.
I have a dog that's a good little howler. She doesn't bark, but when there's a siren, she makes the only noise she makes. She howls. It's very cute. So,
all right, well, go ahead. Let's give us your best old hound dog howl here.
All right.
That sounds like my dog when the fire engines go by. I love it. Well, Monique, thank you so much for joining us here today. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. It's been a blast.
It's our pleasure. And I also want to thank all our old dog listeners out there, too, for joining us. I know there's a lot of other things you could be doing right now, but the fact that you've taken the time to join us means a lot, and we greatly appreciate it. Please note, everything that we talked about here today can be accessed, and all the links to all the cool spots that Monique is involved in and some of the different organizations and her book and all this stuff will be available in our detailed show notes at olddogsreinetwork.com/blog. And you're going to look for the episode there with Monick Halm. You should be able to find all the connections you need in terms of how to reach her. Well, that's the show for today. Remember, cash flow is king and real estate investing the means. Until next time, keep moving forward, and may God bless.
Thank you very much for visiting the Old Dogs REI Network. We would greatly appreciate if you would stop by iTunes and let us know what you think of the show. We would love if you could subscribe to the podcast, give us a 5-star rating, and write a review. The more ratings and reviews we receive, the more visible the podcast will be to others. Thank you.